I walked into my own home on Christmas Eve and found my husband playing daddy to another woman's children. By the next morning, I'd taken back the $4 million house he thought was his. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. He never had any money to begin with. Every dollar, every success, every luxury he flaunted, it was all mine. I was the silent billionaire behind the man everyone admired, and I'd been hiding in the shadows of my own empire for 6 years. This is the story of how I stopped being invisible. And if you've ever felt like you're shrinking yourself for someone who doesn't deserve it, stay until the end. Because what I did next changed everything. My name is Grace, and this is how one Christmas Eve taught me the most expensive lesson of my life. Welcome to Reality Stories Hub. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. Let me tell you about a woman named Grace. That's me. And I need to share with you the story of how one winter evening changed everything I thought I knew about my life. For 6 years, I believed I was living a dream. I was married to Daniel, a real estate developer who everyone in our city of Seattle knew by name. People would see us at charity events, at gallery openings, at the kind of parties where champagne flows and everyone wears their best smile. They'd whisper about how successful he was, how lucky I was to be his wife. But here's what nobody knew. Not his business partners. Not our friends. Not even his own family. I wasn't the lucky one. I was the reason. You see, I run an investment firm. I started it from nothing when I was 25 years old, working out of a tiny office that was barely bigger than a closet. I would wake up at 5 in the morning and work until midnight, learning everything I could about markets and money and how to help people grow their wealth. I traveled constantly, meeting with clients across the country, building something real with my own 2 hands. My grandmother left me money when she passed. Good money. The kind that gives you choices in life. And when Daniel came into my world 7 years ago with his big dreams about transforming neighborhoods and building communities, I saw something special in him. I saw passion. I saw vision. And I thought I saw love. So I didn't just give him my heart. I gave him my resources. I gave him my trust. I gave him the foundation to build his dreams on. 70% of everything we owned together was actually mine. The beautiful house we lived in overlooking Puget Sound, the one with the huge windows and the garden that bloomed every spring, I held the deed. Daniel's construction projects, the ones that made him famous, they were financed with loans I guaranteed with my own assets. His business accounts, they were connected to investments I controlled. But I let him be the face of everything. I let him take the bows, accept the awards, give the speeches. Because I loved him. And because I thought that's what you do when you love someone. You support them. You lift them up. You stand in the background and smile while they shine. The last few months had felt strange, though. Different. When I'd called Daniel from business trips, our conversations felt hollow, like we were reading lines from a script we'd both memorized but didn't really believe anymore. I'd ask him how his day went, and he'd give me these short, distant answers. Busy, he'd say. The usual. Lots of meetings. I told myself it was just stress. Real estate development is tough, especially in a competitive market like Seattle. I understood pressure. I lived with it every day. So I made excuses for the distance growing between us. Then came that December. I was in Boston, closing a deal with a major client. It was 3 days before Christmas, and I was supposed to fly home on Christmas morning. But as I sat in my hotel room that night, looking out at the snow falling over the city, I felt this ache in my chest. I missed my husband. I missed us. I missed feeling connected to the person I'd chosen to build a life with. So I made a decision. I'd surprise him. I'd come home early, and we could spend a quiet evening together, just the 2 of us. Maybe we'd cook dinner together like we used to. Maybe we'd sit by the fire and remember why we fell in love in the first place. I booked a flight for the next afternoon. The whole way home, I felt this excitement building inside me. I imagined his face when I walked through the door. I imagined his arms around me. I imagined feeling close to him again. When my car pulled up to our house that evening, I noticed something odd. There were more lights on than usual. Daniel wasn't really one for holiday decorating. He always said it seemed like a lot of effort for just 2 people. I paid the driver and walked up our stone path, my heels clicking against the cold ground. Through the windows, I could see warm light glowing from our living room. I could hear voices inside. Laughter. Music playing softly. My first thought was that he'd invited some business associates over. Daniel did that sometimes, entertaining clients or investors at the house. It wouldn't be unusual. I unlocked the front door with my key and stepped inside, pulling my suitcase behind me. "Daniel," I called out, setting my bag down. "I'm home early." The voices stopped. Complete silence fell over the house. I walked toward the living room, following the glow of lights from our Christmas tree. A tree I hadn't known we had. "Honey," I called again. "Whose car is that in the driveway?" And then I stepped into the room and saw something that made my heart stop beating. Daniel was sitting on our cream-colored sofa. Next to him sat a woman I'd never seen before. She was beautiful, with soft blonde hair and gentle eyes. On the floor, surrounded by wrapping paper and open presents, were two small children. A little boy who looked about 7, and a girl who couldn't have been more than 4. They looked like a family, and I wasn't part of it. Time seemed to slow down in that moment. I stood there in the doorway of my own living room, still wearing my travel clothes, still holding my purse, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The woman was holding Daniel's hand. The little girl looked up at me with curious blue eyes. "Who's that, Mommy?" she asked in a small voice. Daniel's face had gone completely pale. All the color drained from his cheeks, and his eyes went wide with something that looked like fear. "Grace," he said, and his voice came out as barely a whisper. I didn't expect you." Those 4 words hit me like a punch to the stomach. The woman, sensing something was very wrong, looked between Daniel and me with growing confusion. "Daniel," she said softly. "Who is this?" I took a breath and stepped further into the room. My legs felt shaky, but my voice came out steady and clear. "My name is Grace," I said, looking directly at her. "I'm Daniel's wife." The woman's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. The little boy stopped playing with his toy truck and looked up at all of us, sensing the tension but not understanding it. "That's not possible," the woman whispered, shaking her head. "Daniel told me. He said you were divorced. He said it had been finalized months ago. He said you were just business partners now, that you barely even spoke anymore." I felt something crack inside my chest. Not my heart breaking, exactly. Something else. Something that had been holding me together for a long time. "How long?" I asked her directly, because I knew Daniel would lie. She was trembling now, tears streaming down her face. 10 months, she said quietly. "We've been together for 10 months. He said he wanted to build a life with me and my children. He said he was ready to be a family. 10 months. Almost a year. While I was working 18-hour days, while I was flying across the country building my business, while I was thinking I was supporting our future together, Daniel was building an entirely different future with someone else." The little boy tugged on Daniel's sleeve. "Daddy Dan," he said, confusion in his voice. "What's happening?" "Daddy Dan." This child called my husband Daddy. I looked around the room again, really seeing it this time. The expensive presents under the tree, toys that cost hundreds of dollars each, jewelry boxes with designer names. The woman was wearing a dress that probably cost more than most people make in a month. The children had on shoes I recognized as luxury brands. Even the wine sitting on the coffee table was from my personal collection. Bottles that cost $400 each. Daniel finally found his voice. "Grace, please. This isn't what it looks like. I can explain everything." But it was exactly what it looked like. It was actually worse than what it looked like. Because this wasn't just some affair. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a whole second life, complete with children who saw him as a father figure and a woman who thought she was building a future with an honest man. I turned to the woman, keeping my voice gentle because I could see she was as devastated as I was. "What's your name?" I asked. "Jennifer," she whispered. "Jennifer, I need to ask you something. How does Daniel pay for things? Your dinners, your trips, these gifts for your children?" She looked confused by the question. "He has business accounts," she said. "He's very successful. He owns a development company. He's always been generous. He says he likes taking care of the people he loves." I nodded slowly, feeling something cold and clear settle over me. "Those business accounts he uses to take care of you and your children? They're backed by my money. This house you're sitting in right now? I own it. The car he drives when he picks you up? I co-signed that loan. Every single gift under that tree was purchased with funds that come from accounts I control." The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Jennifer's face crumpled as the truth sank in. She put her hand over her mouth, and I could see her whole body shaking. Daniel started talking fast, trying to control what was happening. Grace, you're being dramatic. Jennifer, don't listen to her. She's upset. She's not thinking clearly. But I was thinking more clearly than I had in months. Maybe years. I'm going to pack a bag, I announced calmly. Jennifer, this is not your fault. You deserve so much better than this. Children, I hope you enjoy your presents. I turned and walked toward our bedroom. Daniel followed me, closing the door behind us. Grace, please, he said, and I heard desperation in his voice. Let me explain. It just happened. I met her at a property showing. She was going through a divorce. She needed someone. It wasn't planned. I went to our closet and pulled out a suitcase. You decided to help her by pretending to be single? I asked, my voice calm as I started folding clothes. By lying to both of us for 10 months? Do you love her? I asked, still not looking at him. He didn't answer. Do you love me? I asked. More silence. I zipped up my suitcase and finally looked at him. Here's what's going to happen. I'm leaving tonight. Tomorrow is Christmas, so I'll give you that with your new family. But the day after Christmas, everything changes. What do you mean? He asked, and I heard fear in his voice. I mean, Daniel, that you're about to learn the difference between being married to money and actually having money. I walked past Daniel without another word, grabbed my suitcase, and headed for the front door. When I got back to the living room, Jennifer and the children were gone. I could hear a car engine starting outside, pulling away into the night. Smart woman, I thought. She understood faster than I had. Daniel followed me to the door, his face desperate. Where are you going? He asked. To my friend's house, I said calmly. Merry Christmas, Daniel. I drove through the quiet Seattle streets toward my best friend Patricia's apartment. The city was decorated for Christmas, lights twinkling everywhere, families visible through windows, gathering together for the holiday. I should have been crying. I should have been falling apart. But instead, I felt something else entirely. I felt awake. For the first time in years, I felt completely, fully awake. Patricia opened her door in her pajamas, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside without asking questions. She made tea, wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, and just sat with me while I told her everything. I can't believe this, she said when I finished, her face a mix of anger and sadness. 10 months. How could he do this? But I wasn't thinking about what Daniel had done anymore. I was thinking about what I had done. How I'd made myself smaller to make him feel bigger. How I'd hidden my success to highlight his. How I'd stayed quiet about my contributions to protect his pride. I hadn't just let Daniel build a second life. I'd made it possible by pretending I wasn't the foundation everything was built on. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in Patricia's guest room, staring at the ceiling, thinking about power. About the power I'd given away by staying silent. About the power Daniel thought he had. About the power he was about to lose. When Christmas morning came, I did something that surprised even me. I called my attorney. Yes, on Christmas morning. Because when you have the kind of resources I have, your attorney answers on Christmas morning. Laura, I said when she picked up, I need you to pull every financial document related to my marriage. Every loan, every guarantee, every shared asset. Everything. Grace, it's Christmas. What's going on? My husband has been using my money to fund a relationship with another woman for 10 months. I need to know exactly what I control and what I don't. Laura was quiet for a moment. Then I heard the sound of her computer starting up. Okay, she said. Give me a few hours. I'll have everything to you by tonight. And Laura, I added, I need to know about the house. I need to know how quickly I can take it back. That evening, Laura called me with information that was even more powerful than I'd remembered. I didn't just hold the deed to our house, worth nearly $4 million. Daniel's entire development company operated on credit lines that I had guaranteed with my personal assets. His business headquarters? The lease was backed by my signature. His company vehicles? Purchased with loans I'd co-signed. Even his personal credit cards were connected to accounts that flowed from my investments. Daniel wasn't a real estate mogul. Daniel was a man with big ideas and expensive tastes who had married a woman with the money to make those ideas reality. Without me, he had nothing but dreams and debt. The day after Christmas, I drove back to the house. Daniel was there alone, looking like he hadn't slept or eaten. His eyes were red, his face drawn. Good, I thought. He should feel uncomfortable. He should feel uncertain. We need to talk, I said, sitting down at our kitchen island. Grace, I ended it with Jennifer, he said quickly. I told her we can't see each other anymore. I told her I made a terrible mistake. I love you. I want to fix this. Please let me fix this. I pulled out a folder of documents Laura had prepared. Do you know what this is? I asked. He shook his head. This is every financial document related to our marriage. Every loan, every guarantee, every asset we share. Would you like to know what I found? I opened the folder and spread the papers across the counter. This house that you brought Jennifer to, where you played happy family with her children. I own it completely. These business loans that keep your company running, they're guaranteed by my assets. This line of credit you used to buy Jennifer that diamond necklace, it's backed by my money. Daniel's face went from pale to ashen. I built you, Daniel, I continued, my voice steady and clear. I gave you the foundation to create your empire, and you used that foundation to betray me. What do you want? He asked quietly. I want a divorce, I said. But more than that, I want you to understand what you've lost. What you threw away for 10 months of lies. I pulled out another set of papers. I'm taking back the house. You have 30 days to either buy me out at full market value or find somewhere else to live. Grace, you can't. I'm also freezing our joint accounts, I continued. And I'm calling in all the guarantees on your business loans. You have 1 week to secure independent financing, or your creditors will start demanding immediate payment. Daniel stood up so fast his chair fell over backward. You're going to destroy everything I've built, he shouted. I looked at him calmly. No, Daniel. I'm taking back everything I built. Everything you built with my money, my credit, my trust. Without me, what exactly do you have? The truth was harsh but simple. Daniel had charm and vision. But I had the capital. I had the business knowledge. I had the family connections that opened doors. He was the face people saw, but I was the foundation everything stood on. And it was time he learned that. Over the next few weeks, I watched Daniel scramble. He called everyone he knew, trying to secure loans based on his company's reputation. But without my guarantees backing him up, banks weren't interested. They could see what I'd always known, that his success was built on borrowed money and borrowed trust. He tried to negotiate with me. He offered me percentages of future profits. He promised to change, to be better, to make things right. He even showed up at Patricia's apartment one night, standing in the rain, begging me to reconsider. Think about everything we built together, he said through the intercom, his voice breaking. 6 years, Grace. 6 years of our lives. Doesn't that mean anything? I looked at Patricia, who was standing beside me with her arms crossed, ready to call the police if needed. 6 years means everything, I said into the intercom. That's why this hurts so much. But you didn't throw away 6 years because you made one mistake, Daniel. You threw them away by making the same choice every single day for 10 months. Every time you called Jennifer. Every time you went to see her children. Every time you used my money to buy them gifts and pretend to be someone you weren't. Those were choices. And now I'm making mine. He stopped coming after that. But here's what surprised me most during those weeks. I wasn't falling apart. I thought I would be. I thought I'd spend days crying, unable to get out of bed, destroyed by the loss of my marriage. But instead, I felt something different. I felt free. For 6 years, I'd been carrying the weight of our life on my shoulders while pretending the weight didn't exist. I'd been the one making sure bills were paid, investments were sound, risks were calculated. But I'd done it all quietly, invisibly, because I thought that's what love required. Now, without that weight of pretending, I could breathe. I kept my investment firm running smoothly. In fact, I expanded it. I took on 3 new major clients, including an international corporation that wanted me to manage their entire portfolio. I started working from a beautiful new office downtown with a view of Elliott Bay. I began mentoring young women who wanted to break into finance, sharing everything I'd learned about building wealth and protecting yourself. And I started being honest about who I was. When people asked what I did, I didn't downplay it anymore. When business contacts wanted to meet, I didn't worry about whether Daniel would feel overshadowed. When I achieved something, I celebrated it openly instead of quietly adding it to a list of accomplishments no one knew about. I bought myself a new apartment, a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It was smaller than the house I'd shared with Daniel, but it was completely mine. Every piece of furniture, every painting on the wall, every decision about how to live there was mine alone. Jennifer reached out to me about 2 months after everything fell apart. She sent me a message through social media, asking if we could talk. I agreed to meet her for coffee. She looked different from that Christmas night. Stronger somehow. More grounded. I wanted to thank you, she said as we sat down. I know that sounds strange, but you saved me from wasting years of my life with someone who wasn't who he said he was. You don't have to thank me, I told her. You didn't do anything wrong. You were lied to just like I was. But I wanted you to know, she continued, that I've been thinking a lot about what you said that night. About the money, about who was really supporting everything. It made me realize something about my own life. What's that? I asked. That I've been doing the same thing you were doing, she said. Making myself smaller. Hiding what I'm capable of. I'm a graphic designer. A good one. But I've been freelancing from home for years, taking small jobs, never really putting myself out there because my ex-husband used to say it wasn't a real career. And then when I met Daniel, I just fell into the same pattern. Letting someone else be the big success story while I supported them from the background. She smiled, and I saw determination in her eyes. Not anymore. I started my own design firm last month. I'm going after corporate clients. I'm done hiding what I can do. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Good for you, I said, and I meant it. Daniel eventually had to sell his development company. Not all of it, but enough to pay back the loans I'd called in. He moved into a modest apartment in a less expensive part of the city. His new projects were smaller, more realistic, based on what he could actually afford rather than what he could borrow against someone else's assets. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he was seeing someone new. I hoped, for her sake, that he'd learned something from what happened between us. But honestly, that wasn't my problem anymore. My attorney Laura told me that Daniel's attorney tried one last time to negotiate a better settlement. They argued that Daniel had contributed to our marriage in non-financial ways, that his reputation had value, that he deserved more than what I was offering. Laura had laughed when she told me this. I showed them the records, she said. Every deposit, every loan, every guarantee. The numbers don't lie. Without your money, Daniel's reputation wouldn't exist. His lawyer went very quiet after that. The divorce was finalized on a rainy Tuesday in March. I sat in Laura's office, signed the papers, and felt a chapter of my life close. Not with anger anymore. Not even with sadness. Just with clarity. How do you feel? Laura asked after the judge's signature made everything official. I thought about it for a moment. I feel like myself again, I said. Like I'm finally taking up the space I deserve to take up. Here's what nobody tells you about reclaiming your power. It's not about revenge. It's not about proving someone wrong or making them suffer for what they did to you. It's about remembering who you were before you started making yourself smaller for someone else's comfort. 6 months after my divorce was finalized, I was invited to speak at a conference for women in finance. It was a big event, hundreds of women from all over the country, all trying to build successful careers in a field that still doesn't always welcome us with open arms. I almost said no. The old version of me would have said no. She would have worried about drawing too much attention, about seeming like she was showing off, about making someone somewhere feel uncomfortable with her success. But I wasn't that version of myself anymore. So I said yes. Standing on that stage, looking out at hundreds of faces, I told them my story. Not all of it, not the most painful details, but the important parts. I told them about building a business from nothing, about having money and resources, but hiding them to protect someone else's ego, about learning the hard way that love without respect is just a beautiful lie. For years, I told them, I was the foundation of an empire that everyone thought belonged to someone else. And I let that happen. I participated in making myself invisible, because I thought that's what supporting someone meant. I could see women in the audience nodding, recognition in their eyes. But here's what I learned, I continued. Supporting someone doesn't mean disappearing. Loving someone doesn't require making yourself small. And building a life with someone should never mean pretending you're less powerful than you are. After my speech, women lined up to talk to me. They shared their own stories. The lawyer who downplayed her partnership to avoid intimidating her boyfriend. The entrepreneur who let her husband take credit for her business ideas. The investor who pretended she didn't understand money as well as she did because it made her family more comfortable. So many women making themselves smaller. So many of us hiding our light to make someone else's shine brighter. One young woman, probably in her mid-20s, waited until everyone else had gone. She looked nervous but determined. My boyfriend wants me to turn down a promotion, she told me quietly. He says it would mean I'd be making more money than him, and it would be weird for our relationship. He says if I really love him, I'd understand why that matters. I looked at her, at this young woman standing at a crossroads I recognized. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "I want the promotion," she said immediately. "I've worked so hard for it. But I don't want to lose him either." "Let me ask you something," I said gently. "If he loved you the way you deserve to be loved, would he want you to be less successful? Or would he be celebrating your promotion right alongside you?" She was quiet for a moment, and I could see tears forming in her eyes. "I think I already know the answer," she whispered. "Then you know what you need to do," I told her. 3 months later, she sent me an email. She'd taken the promotion. Her boyfriend had broken up with her because of it. And she was thriving. "It hurt at first," she wrote. "Losing him felt like losing everything. But then I realized I didn't lose everything. I lost someone who needed me to be smaller, so he could feel bigger. And in exchange, I got myself back. Thank you for helping me see that." I printed that email and kept it in my office, a reminder of why sharing our stories matters. My business continued to grow. I hired a team of talented analysts, mostly women, and we built something remarkable together. We specialized in helping people, especially women, understand and control their own wealth. We taught them how to protect themselves financially, how to never sign something they didn't understand, how to never give away financial power without clear agreements in place. I started dating again, but differently this time. I was upfront about who I was and what I'd built. I didn't hide my success or downplay my achievements. And you know what? The right kind of person isn't intimidated by a woman who knows her worth. I met Thomas at a charity event. He's a teacher, works with kids who struggle in traditional school environments. He doesn't make a lot of money, and he's completely honest about that. But he lights up when he talks about his students, about helping them discover they're smarter than they think they are. On our third date, he said something that made me stop and really look at him. "I have to tell you," he said, "it's incredibly attractive that you're so successful. Not because of the money, but because you know who you are. You're not apologizing for taking up space. That's powerful." "That's a fairly recent development," I admitted, and I told him about Daniel, about making myself smaller, about everything that happened. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I'm sorry that happened to you, but I'm glad you found your way back to yourself. The world needs more women who refuse to shrink. We've been together for 8 months now, and it's different from anything I've known before. It's built on honesty, on respect, on two people who see each other clearly and love what they see, not some diminished version we've created to make the other person comfortable." A year after that Christmas Eve, I drove past the house Daniel and I used to share. New people live there now, a family with 3 kids and a dog. I could see toys in the yard, Christmas lights being put up early. I didn't feel sad looking at it. I didn't feel angry. I just felt grateful. Grateful that I found out the truth when I did. Grateful that I had the resources to protect myself. Grateful that I learned the lesson about power and silence and the cost of making yourself invisible. That Christmas, the one that felt like the end of everything, was actually the beginning. The beginning of living honestly. The beginning of taking up space without apology. The beginning of understanding that the greatest gift you can give yourself is the freedom to be fully, completely, powerfully yourself. If you're reading this or listening to this story and you recognize yourself in it, if you've been making yourself smaller for someone else's comfort, I want you to hear this. You are not selfish for wanting to be seen. You are not demanding for expecting respect. You are not difficult for refusing to hide your light. You are the foundation your life is built on. And foundations are meant to be strong, visible, and unshakable. Don't wait for a crisis to remember that. Don't wait for someone to betray your trust before you value it. Don't wait until you have no choice but to use your power before you acknowledge you have it. Be loud about your success. Be honest about your strength. Be unapologetic about taking up space. Because you deserve a life where you don't have to pretend to be less than you are. You deserve a love that celebrates your power instead of fearing it. You deserve to be the hero of your own story, not the invisible support system for someone else's. That Christmas Eve, when Daniel said he didn't expect me, he was right in more ways than he knew. He didn't expect me to find out about Jennifer. He didn't expect me to fight back. He didn't expect me to use the power I'd always had but never wielded. But most of all, he didn't expect me to choose myself. And that choice, more than any revenge, more than any financial victory, more than anything else that happened, was the real gift I gave myself. The gift of my own freedom. The gift of my own truth. The gift of my own power, finally claimed and never again hidden. That's my story. That's how one winter evening changed everything. That's how I stopped being invisible in my own life. And if my story helps even one person find the courage to do the same, then every difficult moment was worth it. Thank you for listening. Remember, you are the foundation. Build accordingly.